Good afternoon. This video is going to be the first in a number of videos we're going to be doing about specific Russian pyramid health research. This is really being brought about by, if you saw our first video, I really decided to do this seeing that for the third year in a row, our U.S. healthcare system, which relies on pills and procedures, has experienced yet another year of declining life expectancy, while that in Russia, although it's a lot lower than in the US because they spend a lot less and they have a lot more problems to deal with, their life expectancy has hit an all-time high. So that's kind of drawn some striking parallels to me and the way they do their healthcare system and the way we do ours. So I wanted to use this opportunity to go over some specific research today on Russian geometry pyramids, obesity, diabetes, and thyroid function. That's a mouthful and it's a lot to do in a single short video. So I hope that this will be a basis to prompt people to go and look at the underlying research at pyramids.ru, in David Wilcock's books, and also on my website, onlypvcpyramids.com. The Russians have done extensive research in a variety of areas, but one that has not been known in the U.S. until recently deals with some experiments done with mice and their thyroid function. And that research is actually out on pyramids.ru, even when you do the Google translate function, because the website is in Russian as its first language. It's a little bit of a rough read, so I've tried to take that and condense it and make more sense of it on the website. So you may find that my variation of that is a little preferable, and we're going to be seeing that on the screen here in a few minutes. But first I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how all of these things interrelate. I'm not a doctor, so I don't give medical advice, but I would like to point out some basics information that I got from a website called diabetesselfmanagement.com. And I'll quote from there right now. Since the thyroid gland plays a central role in the regulation of metabolism, abnormal thyroid function can have a major impact on the control of diabetes. In addition, untreated thyroid disorder can increase the risk of certain diabetic complications and can aggravate many diabetic symptoms. Since normal thyroid function is essential to regulate energy metabolism, abnormal thyroid function may have profound effects on blood glucose control in diabetes. To go back and expand a little bit on that last sentence, it is essential to the regulation of energy metabolism. So one of the key factors that is associated with obesity and therefore connected to diabetes is hypothyroidism. And also hyperthyroidism, on the other hand, can cause people to lose weight who are eating quite a bit of food on the other side. So some more information about hyperthyroidism. Hyperthyroidism is typically associated with worsening blood glucose control and increased insulin requirements. The excessive thyroid hormone causes increased glucose production in the liver, rapid absorption of glucose through the intestines, and increased insulin resistance. Some information on hypothyroidism. Hypothyroidism rarely causes significant changes in blood glucose control, although it can reduce the clearance of insulin from the bloodstream, so the dose of insulin may be reduced. More importantly, hypothyroidism is accompanied by a variety of abnormalities in blood lipid levels. These include increased total cholesterol and LDA or bad cholesterol levels, and increased triglyceride levels. These abnormal lipid patterns, typical of type 2 diabetes, is usually worsened by hypothyroidism. As a way of background, I've mentioned in other videos, I've lost over 100 pounds since I put a PVC pyramid Russian geometry into my bedroom about 18 months ago. So I do know that before I put that pyramid into my room, not only was I very heavy, but I also had those classic symptoms of low thyroid, hypothyroid function, because I had high triglycerides and a bad ratio of bad cholesterol to good cholesterol in my blood. So I know that because I've had the blood work done earlier this year at Life Extension, that none of those issues exist for me anymore. So there is a cause-effect relationship that I've determined in my personal life, but of course that could be anecdotal. So what I wanted to do was to go over the specific research that the Russians have done on mice so that you can get an idea of how this can affect the thyroid and also how stress levels affect thyroid. In Western medicine, we give no thought whatsoever to the stresses that we're putting on our bodies, whether that be mental stress, work stress, environmental stress, and so forth. But as you can see on the first page that I put up here, pyramid effects on thyroid function and regulation. Let's go over the methodology that was used in these Russian research experiments. The experimental group of mice, called Group A, received a 10% salt to water solution, where the salt was stored inside a 22-meter pyramid before being administered to the mice. The control group, Group B, received a 10% salt to water solution, where the salt had not been exposed to the pyramid. The solutions were administered to the mice at the rate of 5 drops per day, and a double-blind control scheme was applied in the experiment. Employees who determined the state of the thymus did not know which groups were the control group and which were the experimental group, and were only provided with cells marked Group A or Group B. Now for the results. In the experiment, the number of thymus cells was calculated for each of the mice that was in the study. It's been known and previously determined that the number of thymus cells, and by extension, therefore, thyroid function and immune function, decrease greatly with age and with stress. Well, in the control group, the number of thymus cells in mice varied from, and in this case it says 0.1 to 10 to the 7th power to 28 to 10 to the 7th power. I don't think we need to really worry about what the 10 to the 7th power means. It's the number of cells. But the point here is to look at the differential of 0.1 to the number 28, a huge discrepancy. Now in the pyramid group, however, the variation in the number of thymus cells in the mice varied much less dramatically, and only from 5 times 10 to the 7th to 7.8 times 10 to the 7th. So in other words, rather than having a variation of 280 times from 0.1 to 28, there's only a variation of about 50% from 5 to 7.8. So a huge change in the variability of the number of thymus cells, and therefore one can take from that this is an optimization of the thymus cellularity, and that is one of the indicators characterizing immune function within an organism. So clearly an indication here that the thyroid function, and as measured by size, is being regulated by the water that was put into the pyramid. Now, other research in other areas has shown that you can sit under the pyramid and get the same effects. You could put water into the pyramid probably and get the same effects. Here they use salt, which was put into the pyramid for the experimental group, and then it was added to water in a 10% salt to water solution. Now on the next page, there's some research about the reduction of stress in these same laboratory mice. And this is very, very interesting to me as well. The same group of mice in the same environment were studied, studies were conducted on the effect on a group of mice of placing a 1 gram piece of crystalline gypsum previously placed in a Russian geometry pyramid next to the cell that the mice were living in. So in this case, they're just putting a piece of gypsum that had been in there, and those crystals now contain that energetic information. And that's put next to where the mice are living, rather than actually having them ingest a salt solution where the salt was previously placed in the pyramid. The control group had no such exposure. What they did was that for 5 days, they calculated the number of quote-unquote fights in the cell between the mice using a microphone system. And the number of fights in the experimental group, on average, was 3.5 times less than that in the control group. And at the same time, the thymus cellularity levels that we just discussed were quite similar to the results that we just discussed. So from that, the Russian scientists concluded that an obvious decrease in the level of aggressiveness of the experimental group of animals was the result of exposure to the gypsum placed inside the pyramid. So what that's saying is exposure to pyramid energy reduced violent acts in the mice, which is the result of exposure to the pyramids. This in turn led to a much more highly functioning thymus gland, which is regulated in terms of size and so forth, to normal levels. And that has a tremendous impact on the immune function of the mice. Now, similar research has been done that we're going to talk about in other videos, but with humans and the impact of violent behavior there as well. But suffice it to say, these experiments prove that thyroid function can be controlled, stress reduced, and thereby a lowering of the need for obesity, and therefore most likely leading to a reduction in diabetes in a human population. Hope this is helpful. We're going to continue to do these as time goes on. Please feel free to call me if you have any questions. And also, if you like these videos, please remember to have your friends tell them about our website and our YouTube videos, like our videos, and also subscribe so you can see the rest of this series as we start to put out this additional information, which I hope is proving valuable to you. Have a great day, and thanks for watching.